What's going on, everybody? My name is Alex, and this is Jabber. If you didn't already know that by hitting the video, or if you're not subscribed to us, welcome and subscribe. If you're coming back for more, welcome and back for more. Sorry, I sound and look like shit. I've had like a cold all week. On top of that, I'm really fucking annoyed at Apple right now, so I just wanted to do this as a little buffer before the video because I like money. If you're somebody like me who wants to put their podcast on other sites besides YouTube, and you don't really know how to do that, and you don't really want to pay for it, because in order to do that, you have to get an RSS feed, which you have to get through a hosting website that pushes that link that allows you to submit to sites like Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, so on and so forth. I didn't feel like paying for that because I don't make money off of this, and I would like to. But I need an audience, so I have to push my stuff out there, right? You gotta get a wider audience, so I want to put it on other sites for people to stumble upon and find. I found the best fucking solution. It's a website called Anchor.fm. They got a free app too, wherever you buy your apps. Basically, it's just that. You upload your shows if you already have pre-recorded shows, and if you don't, they have an option to record and edit right from the website. You don't even need to do anything. You can edit, record, and submit all in the same place, all at the same time. And they distribute your podcast the second you upload it to streaming sites like Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, this site called Breaker, and 4 or 5 others for free, no strings attached. There's not a monthly fee after you upload a certain amount. Nothing. No fee, nothing. Completely free. You can design a logo, make banners, thumbnails, all that good stuff straight from the website of the app. So, if that doesn't sell you on it, then maybe making money from it by doing what I'm doing right now and telling you about it, maybe that will sell you. Because you can make money by just being a douchebag and plugging this awesome website, which I would have told anybody about anyway, because anything that's free is a friend to me. So if you want to do that, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm right now and get started today. I mean, you can do this literally right now as you're listening to me talk about it. You can do it right now. Go to it. Download the app, download the Anchor app, or go to anchor.fm and get started right now. All right. I'm done with that. Enjoy the show, or whatever this is.
Yeah. How you doing, buddy?
Doing okay, you?
I'm doing good. I'm okay. It was a day. Well, welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be on.
Absolutely. I've got the code sent over to Alex. He's currently doing boyfriend duties right now. So
what a loser.
Yeah, he'll be popping in here at some point just to kind of throw this whole thing off.
Yeah, hopefully his audio works.
I'm sure it is, because as soon as I hit a button, it worked. So, the last episode that me and Alex did, we actually, I listened back after he edited the whole thing and posted it to YouTube, and my audio sounded the same before I got this mic. And I was like, I know I didn't just spend money on a microphone to not hear at least a subtle difference.
Right.
And I noticed that in the Zoom audio settings that it was still using my computer audio. Like, you have to select condenser microphone. So I was like, oh,
right.
Because I assume my audio sounds really good.
Are you talking like on my end?
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds like horse shit, but I figure maybe it's just you.
Probably.
No, I'm joking. Yeah, it sounds fine.
Okay.
Well, what's funny is so on old phone, because I just upgraded on my old phone when I would do these podcast interviews, I had the headset that came with it.
Yeah.
And I'm using the headset that came with this phone. And last week I did a podcast and it was over the phone. And normally it has that over the phone sound,
Oh yeah.
but I listened to the podcast afterward and my audio sounded fantastic. It sounded
Nice.
better than the host's audio,
Oh wow.
which I thought was really bizarre.
That's great. That is great.
So
No.
hopefully that's the case again.
Yeah, definitely. Except for I hope that both of our audio is good on this thing, because this
That's
was
true.
this was a nice little find.
I bet.
Yeah. So how's everything going? I know that the last we talked, we were talking about this year and what we planned on doing together, and just getting the ball rolling on something. I know you've been working on some stuff. That's great, because I know that people really seem to like what we just did. Like every day it seems like there's a new article about 13 Slays Till Christmas, and it's phenomenal to see the support.
Yeah, the reaction so far to the movie has been exceptional. I mean, you always hope that you hope when you do something that people will enjoy it, but
Yeah.
I've been doing this so long that I know not everyone's going. There's going to be people that shit on the movie. It
Well,
hasn't happened yet,
yeah.
but it will.
I mean, there's people who get on total masterpieces before it, so that's okay. It's
right.
It's
Most of that, I was going to say, most of that will come whenever we get on VOD. That'll be that'll be really like putting us at the edge of the precipice, because
oh yeah,
at that point you have everybody who thinks they're a movie critic getting on there, and that's one of the things that I learned putting movies out the most, is that people who truly enjoy the movie will go and tell like 10 of their friends, hey, I loved the movie.
yeah.
But usually they don't take the time to like write the review down on Amazon, or whatever streaming service they watched it on.
Right.
People, negative horror fans.
Yeah.
I'm doing air quotes for those who can't see. They're the ones who will take the time because they've got nothing else better to do, and they hate things so fervently and so consistently that they just sit and write these long diatribes about how much something sucks. And
yeah,
and everybody's different, so some people legitimately don't enjoy things.
Oh, yeah.
But I tend to gravitate towards constructive criticism, because like I know that like we just got the Bloody Flicks review, and it was constructive. And then there was another review that just came out, but like the Bloody Flicks gave what it liked and what it didn't like. Then there was another review, and it's the name of who did the review escapes me, but it did kind of the same thing, only it was far more positive on the positive side.
Yeah.
But it still gave really good constructive criticism. So like I really appreciate those, because I don't want to just sit around and have somebody tell me how awesome I am or how great something is. Like I want to hear how can I be better next time?
Yeah.
Because if all you hear is how awesome you are, that says what? That you've peaked. You've got nowhere left to go.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to do better. You're constantly, complacency is your own worst enemy. So
right. And if that's the case, then I'm never going to get beyond this small room filled with movies, and one day probably have to construct a small house out of them, living on the streets.
Yeah, I think complacency just can tear people apart, and it's what I love about horror in general is how there's so many different storytellers out there, and they have such a unique gift at showing people, like the slasher genre, for instance, like what Wes Craven was able to accomplish with Scream. And then you have other slasher films that might not be so prolific, but still have their own following. You know, some B
Right.
movies and some of the more campier ones that just get straight to Netflix. But you know, there's an audience for every film, and
Absolutely.
it's really cool to see like different directors and writers who can just take an ideal like, oh well, I'd like to have, you know, a killer go after some horny teenagers, or I'd like to have a killer who preys on people's dreams, or you know, there's just so many different interpretations of what's already been established that it's nice to kind of see, you know, the original part and you know, where they're going with like maybe a newer take on a film's idea, or maybe a way to pay homage to it. But here lately, man, I've just been so in love with 80s horror. Like,
Oh, I've always that's my 80s horror is my go-to. Like, um, I mean, I have a bunch of 90s and 2000s and current stuff, um, but the films that I consider comfort food that
yes,
I keep going back to every time I want to just fall asleep to something or I don't really know what to watch. It's always like John Carpenter or Toby Hooper or Wes Craven, like you said. Um, I tend to, and then there's some that are more obscure,
yeah,
um, like Just Before Dawn has become one of my favorite slasher movies. And then the town that dreaded sundown. It's interesting. Um, it's not a. I don't know if you've seen the town that dreaded sundown.
it's been a long time since I've seen that
Yeah,
actually.
that's that's all. It's a slasher film, but at the same time, it's not your atypical. It's not your '80s slasher film where it's
Yeah,
boobs and guts and blood. Um, it's more. There's more atmosphere. It's a lot slower. So when I first tried to watch that, I had kind of a difficult time getting into it
hmm,
because I was more accustomed to the harder stuff at the time.
oh yeah,
I've since come back and revisited that movie, and it has become one of my favorite slasher films.
hmm,
Um, just because of it, it is slower paced, but there's more mystery to it, and
yeah.
I love the documentary style that it goes with, but it's also kind of a feature narrative at the same time. Um, so yeah,
There's just a lot of ground to cover with a film like that. Like, so many different angles were put into making that movie. It was great. And you know, the 80s horror genre alone, and it honestly should be a genre, like a subgenre, like 80s horror, because I can't really think of anything um 90s horror that really stands out to me. And there might be quite a bit.
Scream.
Yeah, and that's about it really for me.
Well, I really enjoyed all the spin-offs. You know, that always happens when the horror resurgence or when a horror resurgence takes place in an era. There's always this myriad of spin-offs that happen
Yeah.
or films that kind of copycat to some degree
Hmm.
that style or that subgenre of film.
Yeah.
So like when Scream came out, you had Urban Legend. Um, a
I
little
know what you
later,
did last summer.
into the early 2000s, you ended up having Valentine, which was very similar to Scream, and it's the Who Done It slasher films.
Yep.
Um, I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I don't know if you saw this or not. Did you see where it's getting like a reboot
Is it really?
on Amazon? It's going to be a series, but it's not based
Huh.
off the Lois Duncan book. It's based off the '97 slasher film.
Really?
Yeah. I think they're going to tie in some stuff. It's being shot in Hawaii, which I found very interesting that they picked that
Hmm.
location. Because the first thing I thought of was I Still Know What You Did Last summer. And
Where it ended
I'm
kind
not a
of.
huge fan of that one.
I'm not either, just because it got a little bit too much.
Yeah. Well, what's really funny is I love Jack Black.
His
But
character was
before-
great.
Well, see, before I knew who Jack Black was, I fucking hated him in that movie.
Really?
I thought his acting was so bad in that movie. I said, God, I hope I never see that guy in another movie ever again. Because I could not handle him in that character.
The stoner guy.
I have since gone back and rewatched it, and I enjoy the movie now more than I did then. And his character, because now I'm used to Jack Black. When I see his character now, I'm like, well, it makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So I do enjoy it now, and I think it's funny to watch. But at the time, I was more serious about my horror films.
Oh yeah.
I was more of a fanboy. I've lightened up, but yeah. But when I saw that they were doing a series of I Know What You Did Last Summer, I was excited because that's always probably next to Scream, my second favorite slasher film from the 90s.
Yeah.
I watched it not too long ago, and it holds up really well.
The first one?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I thought, they went partying, they run over this guy. Guy has a dad who's a boatsman, because we're not going to say seaman. And, the dad finds out, and then the guy's like, well, I'm going to go on a murdering rampage because you fucking killed my son.
Right.
And it's like, well, okay, that makes for a good movie. But you throw in the heartthrobs, like you had Freddie Prinze Jr., who was like heartthrob central. You had Buffy, you had Jennifer Love, Ryan Phillippe, who's actually made quite the career.
Yeah.
I think Freddie Prinze Jr., he's made a lot of chick flicks, but he's also done a lot of like voice acting. And he's done a lot of stuff. He's actually a writer for WWE. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that at all. It's funny, Trina, my wife Trina, she was in love with Freddie Prinze Jr. Like anytime a movie was coming out with Freddie Prinze Jr., she would start swooning. It's like, oh, we got to go see that.
Yeah, of course.
Here's the thing. Hopefully he doesn't see this because I'm going to completely blow her chances of ever getting with him. But she saw a photo of him here recently. She's like, oh my God, what happened to him? He has not aged well.
Yeah.
Then again, think of who she's with. So I'm like, your standards are pretty low already.
I mean, hey, he didn't age
Jr. comes knocking on the door. You better not pass that chance up. Because if he comes looking for me, don't think that I'm going to pass it up.
Right? Yeah. I mean,
I'm just saying.
Who would?
$20 is $20.
Exactly. No, I think the slasher genre is super special. It's very important, and I really dig it. There was a movie that came out. I think you and I talked about this before. The 1984, the summer of '84. It was kind of like Goonies meets Stranger Things, meets Disturbia. It was a really, really good film.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was like, for some reason, I was thinking the actual summer of 1984.
Oh, no.
No, but the film Summer of '84, I have not seen that yet.
Yeah, man.
I still have not watched it.
Let me see. I'm trying to.
It's in my queue on Shudder.
So
I haven't watched it yet.
It is on Shudder, though?
I'm pretty positive. Yeah, if not, I've seen it at least on Amazon, and I've got Amazon, so.
Yeah, this movie really surprised me. The kid actors really just carry this film. A lot of convincing roles in this movie, and it was just one of those things that it created a sense of nostalgia without being too fan servicey about it,
Right.
Which is such an overreach nowadays for filmmakers. Is they try to sprinkle in like the things that we remember most and hold dear, and it's like that's nice, but be more original with it. It's your story. We don't want, like, if we wanted to do it, we would just make that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, who does that?
I don't know.
Who sprinkles all kinds of nostalgic shit in their movies? Not me.
Shameless plug.
There's not
No.
over 60 homages or so amidst the 4 sequences we did here. No, there's not.
But I think that that's different.
Well, yeah, but they're not just, they're visual, they're written into the dialogue. It's a lot.
Yeah, I've seen, there was a horror movie I saw on Amazon before I got rid of my Amazon Prime. And I forget what it was. It was kind of a low budget film. It wasn't awful, but they threw in too much shit about the 70s. And there was like callback after callback after callback after callback. And I was like, okay, we get it. You're really showing us that this movie is based in the 70s. We got it. Like,
Yeah.
I forgot what the movie was even about at that point. I was like, oh, I'm just living in the 70s, and some shit's happening.
Right.
But, there's this movie, Summer of '84, was really good. The kid actors did phenomenal in it. I forget who played ultimately the bad guy, because if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't ever really show his face, which I love the mystery of that, like with these whodunits. Too often do we get tied up to actually who done it instead of like what they're doing, what they've done.
Right.
And you're like, I just want to know who's doing it. I want to know who's doing it. But like, you're not paying attention to the craftiness of their character. Like what Ghostface was able to achieve in Scream 1 was just like, no one had done that in film. No one had mercilessly preyed on their victims and stalked them and really made them feel like super insecure and unsafe in their own home.
Right.
There have been movies like that, but
there never been a dual masked killer.
Yeah.
Up to that point that I can think of. And
not
I think
that I
that's
know
what
of.
that's what made it so successful, is because the whole time you think it's only one individual doing everything, and you never once considered, well, maybe it's 2.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny now, though, is when a slasher movie comes out, now you start suspecting everyone.
Yeah.
And then not even just one person, you're like, it could be 3, it could be 4 people.
It could be the main actor.
Yeah, it could. It's anything goes. Not really, thanks to Scream. But yeah, so yeah, Scream is one of those. I think Scream is probably one of those seminal films. Like, I can vividly remember where I was, what I was doing when I first saw it. Funny enough, I didn't go see it in theater because I didn't want to go see it. Because I was never a huge, I don't know what I was thinking, but it was like I was never a huge who's the actress in the very beginning of the movie? I'm brain farting.
Oh, Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore. I was never a huge Drew Barrymore fan. I didn't hate Drew Barrymore, but that wasn't, but all the trailers like heavily showed Drew Barrymore. So I was like, I don't know. A horror film with Drew Barrymore? I'll see it when I see it. And that's not me shitting on the marketing for that movie, because I just remember seeing Drew Barrymore and associating her with the film and thinking, Drew Barrymore movie, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then the movie came out and I saw it, and I was beating myself up for not seeing it in the theater.
Because you missed out on the experience.
Right, because it was it really was like an amazing, I can't imagine, well, I can imagine, but I wish I could imagine personally being in the theater, because I've had so many movies I've gone to that I can remember watching with a crowd of people, and that makes the experience so much more visceral, just by way of sitting next to someone and experiencing something in some similar fashion, even if it's a stranger.
Did you go see the sequels in the
Oh yeah. Oh, I definitely
You more than made up for it.
Do what?
You more than made up for it then.
Yeah, I went and saw the third one at the drive-in, and I was really kind of disappointed in the third one. And it's fun, but it's not a great sequel. It's kind of a placeholder, I think, before part 4, which we get way later. But I loved part 4.
See, I'm glad you did, because I really enjoyed it too.
I think next to the first one, part 4 is the next best one.
Wow, really?
I thought part 4 was better than the sequel.
See, I
And the
really
sequel-
enjoyed the second one.
Yeah, see, I really like the sequel too. And when Randy died and I was in the theater, I literally went, no, and then was so mad I thought about leaving.
Yeah.
So pissed.
He actually did a
That-
podcast about that, about his death in the movie and how it like really launched his career after that. Because after he died in Scream 2, you know, he had that small little divot in Scream 3 on the TV. But
Right.
he went on to do like, I don't know if you remember the Jamie Kennedy Experience
Yeah,
or
I
the
remember
Jamie
that.
Kennedy Experiment or whatever it was called. And then he
Yeah.
did a couple other roles. But he goes into talking about like he didn't know he was gonna die. Like nobody knew Randy was gonna die, and that was the thing. Like whenever I watched it for the first time, I'm like, how do you kill off a character who's like seemingly unimportant to a lot of other viewers, but to the movie fan, the horror fan, you know how integral his part is in this universe, and
Right.
it's just like, wow, they just threw out the book.
Well, Randy was us.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, Randy was the person who was watching the movie. Like he spoke for the horror fans because his character was his character was Kevin Williamson. You know, it's like
Yeah.
Kevin Williamson's a horror fan. He wrote it based on his knowledge, and of course, Randy is speaking for Kevin, speaking for all of us.
Yeah.
And yeah, so him killing or them killing Randy in the second movie was killing. From what I gathered, everybody I've ever talked to, I've never met anyone who said they weren't pissed about Randy getting killed. And then what's funny is then Cotton Weary comes into the fold a lot heavier.
Yeah.
And he became my next favorite character. And then they fucking kill him in the very
3.
beginning of the third movie. So when the third movie, when I went to the drive-in and saw the third movie, and Cotton, spoiler alert, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't watched the Scream movies by now, then you know there's something wrong with
that's
it.
your fault. Yeah.
Right. But when Cotton Weary died at the beginning of the third movie, I remember sitting back going, "Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm already done with part 3."
Oh yeah.
You know, but then I got into it, but still, it's like, but watching it now, it's not. It could have been so much more, I guess.
I just
I know-
didn't
I know
really
that's
like the
Russian.
Roman actor. I didn't care for the Roman Bridger character. I
Right.
like that it was tied directly to Sydney. I thought that was very clever, but I felt like, I don't know, he was just super pompous. Like, I know that's the character he was supposed to portray, but like his character came off as overly pompous, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
Like they tried way too hard to throw you off that it was almost obvious he was the killer.
Yeah, and see, that was the thing that they did in part 2 with Mickey. They made Mickey overly suspicious.
Yeah.
The scene in the hospital after Sydney's boyfriend gets stabbed. I'm terrible with names, so sometimes I remember them.
In
But he was on Jerry O'Connell's character.
Oh yeah.
Got stabbed in the arm after the attack at the sorority house,
Mhm.
and then they're in the hospital, and Mickey's sitting there, and he says, "What I don't understand is why would anyone go back in that house?" And there's that little noise that that sound, and then Sydney gets this look on her face, like, how does he know that? And immediately I went with my best friend Cole, and I looked at him and I said, "Mickey's the killer." Because to me, it was so obvious. He wasn't a part of the movie enough, it felt like. And then on top of it, he's giving away like really super important plot details all of a sudden. So to me, that was almost too obvious. Now, Mrs. Loomis, I didn't call. Him, I called almost.
Yeah, I don't think anybody saw that coming.
No. I thought that was a cool twist. Now with like the third film, I thought the way it unfolded, there was a lot of really cool things. But I think that I don't know. I feel like they should have gone in some kind of. I feel like had the third one gone in more of a direction like the fourth one had gone, where Sydney had gone away from Woodsboro and then come back.
Yeah.
It would have been more successful. But I know they were trying to go bigger and better and set it in Hollywood and have the stab movies. And
the whole Kirby being involved really threw me for a loop. I was like, because they finally picked like the Babe character, you know, to be involved. And then what was her name? Hayden Panettiere, right?
yeah.
Like they got her, and then you're like, oh, it's her. And then all of a sudden, like you're like, nope. Rory Culkin just turned around and stabs her.
Yep.
And then again, you know, he has that kind of creepy look already.
Right.
But like, I felt like that was a really good twist because you want him to play that character. And seeing Sydney's cousin, yet another relative, putting on Ghostface, that was just like, oh my God, you know.
Yeah. Something else I really liked about part 4 is they got actors that looked like actual teenagers.
Yes.
To play teenagers.
Instead of 30-somethings.
That.
Yeah.
Right. Like mid to late 20s, early 30s playing teenagers. But yeah, and that was the other thing. It was like Kirby was almost the new Randy.
Mm-hmm.
She was the most likable and affable and down-to-earth character in those films, so you automatically have this connection with her as a person. And
yet again, they killed it off.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's and you know, of course, most every horror film follows in suit now. Usually, if there's a character that you really, really, really like, more often than not, that character's gonna die.
So it kind of it begs the question, like, okay, the new Scream, what direction are we going? Are we going?
I don't know.
Are we going as a continuation of Sydney's story? Or are we going as a reboot, but it's the original characters and a younger generation's turn to experience it?
I would say it's probably if they're bringing everybody back, then it's going to be a continuation. Well, because they're even bringing back Marley Shelton's character.
Oh, Deputy Judy?
Yes, they're bringing Deputy Judy back.
Okay, so it's definitely
it's going to be a direct continuation to the fourth one.
I can't remember why for the life of me, but they kept tossing around the word reboot like before whenever it was announced they were going to make another one.
Yeah,
it was just
I think it's going to be a continuation, but not a direct continuation. And to me, that's kind of smart because you're taking characters that people are already familiar with, but you go in a completely different direction. So, because obviously the fourth one, Kevin Williamson had already said at the time that he had the next 2 films planned out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so had part 4 been successful, we would have had a continuation and follow through for a new second half of a trilogy. So you would have had the first 3 films, and then you would have had the next 3 films, and they would have had their own little story arcs and storylines. Because he had already had the other 2 movies planned out.
And
then of course Scream bombed at the box office.
I just don't understand.
And I don't know how that even happened. Especially considering, like what I said earlier, when I went and saw it, I thought, God damn, this is almost as good as the first movie.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden,
Raven's final movie.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the other thing that pisses me off. Because obviously Craven was still on board. Everybody else was on board.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like they ought to just say, fuck the fans, which they do. They do that.
They do.
And that's the funny thing. They never say fuck the fans when it's something we want. It's always fuck the fans when it's something that we don't want.
Yes.
That seems to be the big issue with.
I kind of want to see somebody who's super close to Sydney end up being involved in this new murder spree that I'm sure will happen.
Yeah.
Like
I
Dewey has
think
gone off the rails because maybe they're divorced in real life, so maybe they'll use that, and maybe Gail Weathers loses it, or maybe Dewey loses it, or honestly, my hope is a callback to Scream 1 where they bring back Stu.
I've heard that. I've heard all kinds of rumors that he had a twin or that he didn't really die.
Yeah.
He survived somehow.
I mean, he could have. It is the movies. He could
He
be
could
severely
have,
scarred.
but it's one of those things where had he survived, they would have referenced it at some point.
Would they
Because look,
though?
well,
Maybe
yeah,
maybe he was in a
look at
coma.
what they did with. You got to think. Look what they did with Cotton Weary's character.
Yeah.
So Liev played a role that was about like this big in the first movie. The character's referenced multiple times,
Yeah.
but the only time you actually see him is on
the
that
TV.
news footage from the trial that had happened a year before.
Yeah.
So you only saw him for like, all of 6 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But the character itself was throughout the entire film. And then when the second film comes around, not only is he referenced multiple times, but now he's full blown in the mix.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's so many references and crossovers between the characters in the movies that had Stu survived the situation from the first movie, it would have been brought up. The only way I can think that they would be able to get away with that is if he survived and then to protect Sydney, they somehow managed to never say anything about it and locked him away in some institution and she had no idea, and then suddenly he escapes or something. But even then,
but
to
that's
me,
not a bad premise. That's not a bad premise at all.
yeah, but I would feel like it's lazy. I feel like bringing Stu back for anything other than like a flashback would just be lazy writing, because the thing about the Scream movies is that it's always the character you least expect, even though like earlier I said, well, Mickey is obviously the killer, but you never saw the mom coming. The thing was, though, is that you saw her character through the whole second movie.
Yeah.
She was popping in and out, but never once did I ever think, well, she's the potential second killer. So there's always some, like, a character you don't expect. That's the whole purpose, is that you have your red herrings, but you shouldn't really know or have an idea of who the killer is.
Yeah.
And there's already all this speculation that it could be Stu coming back. I feel like if they went with that, I would be very disappointed.
I think the only way you could do it would be one of two ways. One way is that you bring him back to mentor someone else into killing.
Right.
And kind of have him, pulling the strings, not really completely out there active with it, or, someone that's just like a ghost for Sydney. You know how her mom was in the first one?
Right.
Just have him horrifically scarred from the TV. I think that it would, I agree with you. I think it would be lazy writing, but I think that there's a way you can do it with finesse. I think that you can polish it up a little bit, and utilize, okay, he has the most knowledge of any one of the murderers who followed him, and use that because of how much he knows about Sydney. He hasn't had any interactions with her. He's been studying all of her moves from the beginning. He's had the most time to plan his revenge, but instead of him doing it, or he could do it, that could be, he could actually be coaxing someone else to do it.
Right.
I don't know. It may very well, it could work.
I mean, it's a possibility. I don't know. I kind of feel like the only way I would be okay with it is if they went from like a prodigal son approach, where Stu is still alive, but he's in an institution, and there's some scene where Sydney decides that she or whoever decides they want to better know the inside of a killer's mind. So they go and visit him in the institution to
That
kind of
just
just talk with him about why he did what he did and what was he thinking. And
that blows my mind because I love that show and I cannot wait to watch the new premiere tonight.
oh yeah, the new season's going to be so good.
Like I've avoided spoilers for that fucking show since like the plague. All day at work, people are like, "Hey
Yeah.
man, did you watch Prodigal?" I'm like, if you say a fucking word, so help me God.
Yeah.
I'm going home to watch it tonight. I don't want to hear a word about it.
Here's what I'm getting pissed off about most about spoilers. So like with the Mandalorian, everybody's like, "Oh, the new episode just dropped. Here's what happened in detail."
Yep.
And they say what happens. Well, so Trina and I love The Masked Singer. Well, they have a new spinoff from that called The Masked Dancer.
Oh yeah.
So we started watching that, and I'm not really into dancing. Trina's not really into dancing. It's just fun to see who gets unmasked.
Yeah.
Like, what celebrity is it? Well, anyway, we haven't watched like the last episode or last two episodes. I'm scrolling through Facebook yesterday, and the advertisement for their show on their page is who was unmasked
Bill
talking
Nye.
about the show.
Bill Nye.
Yeah.
It's like, what a douchebag.
I was like, what the fuck? Like, Fox, really? What's the perp? Like, there's no mystery anymore.
Yeah, I'm just glad that they don't do that with The Masked Singer.
Oh, I would be livid.
I know Alex is probably going to watch this while he's editing, and he's going to be like, really? You went from horror to The Masked Singer? You know what, Alex? Fuck you. You don't get to judge me, daddy. Yeah.
I know.
No, I agree. There's too many people that out there that would spoil it. Like, I have a friend who's been down there in Wilmington the whole time Scream has been filming because I was supposed to go down there and be an extra, and I didn't get to do it. I'm very sour.
I want to say I remember you saying something about that.
Yeah, very sour about that because COVID sucks.
Well, there's always the next Scream, assuming that this one isn't a total flop.
Even if it flopped, even if it got like a certified rotten, you know just as well as I do, there will be a fifth or no, a sixth.
Sixth, yeah.
Yeah, there'll be a sixth. But no, a friend of mine, he lives down around that area. And he's like, oh man, guess who I saw on set? I said, if you tell me, I will fucking kill you. And they'll make a movie about that.
Oh, there you go.
No, I don't want spoilers, man. I want to be surprised. Like, that's the thing. Like, whenever they share things about like, oh, the new Batman movie with Robert Pattinson's filming in London, here's set photos. And it's like, I don't want to look at some bastard who took a cell phone shot from across the road of Robert Pattinson walking down a set of stairs looking this way. Like, that doesn't intrigue me at all.
Right.
It infuriates me because it's taking away the magic of what that movie can be.
See, I just try to I frequent movie news sites, usually horror, like Bloody Disgusting, Dread Central, pop horror and horror fuel, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I usually tend to, if even trailers now, a lot of times, if it's a movie I've never heard of, then I'll watch the trailer. But if it's a movie that I have heard of or I'm really, really looking forward to it, usually I will avoid the trailer or the set photos just because, I mean, I used to eat that stuff up. Yeah. I wanted it. I was constantly looking at that stuff.
Guilty of doing that as well.
Yeah.
I think we all are.
Not anymore, though.
No.
I just want to be completely surprised when I watch a movie.
And see, that's what I'm glad we didn't
want that oh shit moment.
Right. And see, that's what I'm glad, like with the movie that we made, it was like, you know, we didn't really have that. Like, we were very vocal about, you know, if you're going to post a photo, like a selfie of you and me, that's fine. Please make sure that the main characters are not in the shots in their costumes. And I don't know why And I guess to some degree, bigger Hollywood like franchises can't really enforce that of like someone walking down New York City's, main street and then some random person taking a picture of like the new Transformers being filmed. It's like, well, okay, I get that. But like of all the things that I've seen lately, there's just so many set photos. And it's like, can they not really control that at all? Like it doesn't even look like they're trying at this point.
Yeah. I would say the only set, I don't think I've seen any set photos from the new Mission Impossible movie. I've heard the audio where Tom Cruise is hating everyone, but I don't think I've seen any set photos from the movie.
Tom Cruise, for anyone who hasn't, been out of the rock, Tom Cruise went full Christian Bale. Yeah, but I kind of like, I support that. I support the reason he did. Tensions are really high in movie making right now, especially because, like he says in his rant, we are the standard right now. And they were, if I'm not mistaken, they were the first production to go full production in Hollywood during COVID-19. So, everyone's looking at them and thinking and taking notes of like how they're making this movie safely. And you got people on set who are not abiding by those precautions and the rules that were laid down to make this movie still happen. And, could he have said things a little differently? Sure. Hindsight's 2020. But the thing is he was very passionate. That's a franchise he's been a part of for decades. So I totally understand where he's coming from. People have so much hatred towards him just because of like all the shit that you hear with like rumors and all the Katie Holmes stuff and all that. But,
right,
his Scientology, it's like just strip away all of the things that about a celebrity and look at the body of work that they've done. And you really can't have, I mean, what animosity do you have towards an actor at that point? When all the rest of that is stripped away and you look at something like John Krasinski, for instance, his whole body of work up to a certain degree was The Office. And if you judge him strictly off of his body of work at that time, then phenomenal person, right? So now he's taken a degree further and he's started to become a director writer with A Quiet Place. And, the caveat there is that he has just came up with a franchise that is wildly successful. And yes, he's married to Emily Blunt, which is like, okay, that speaks for itself, but like, you can't judge that man just because he chose to shop here or there, or, he doesn't go to this church or that church, or he didn't vote for this person. Like too often, I think people get lost in the politics of Hollywood, I like to call it. And they're more concerned about what their extracurriculars are other than the masterpieces that they've made. Like, people aren't perfect. I'm far from it, and celebrities have to live in the spotlight. And I'm not saying, oh, feel sorry for the celebrities at all, but they are under a magnifying glass 24/7. So, whenever it's something like what Tom Cruise did the other day, when it's strictly about being safe and keeping jobs, because that production could have gotten shut down. If the wrong person would have seen whatever Tom Cruise was going off about, that production could have been halted again. And then more people would have been without jobs because they source them locally to wherever they're filming. And, that's just something I don't think people really understand the movie making process to a certain degree. They see it and they think, oh yeah, well, that makes sense. This is how they did it. I'll watch the behind the scenes, but you don't really get that they're outsourcing jobs to locals to help work on these films. And some of these actors have a hand in it when they're producing the film, and they want to employ locals. They want to give people a chance. So it's, I definitely see where he was coming from.
Yeah.
No harm,
the
no
other
foul.
thing too that people don't understand is, especially people who watch movies strictly for entertainment, is they watch a movie and they say, "Oh man, they look like they had a blast," and they think that making a movie is just hanging out.
Mhm.
What they don't understand is like in the situation with the whole COVID thing, um, it's a business. It's still a bit at the end of the day, it's a business,
Yeah.
and there is millions of dollars on the line, and there's a very strict and specific schedule that they're trying to keep. And if they get shut down for 2 weeks, they're going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they're going to lose a lot of traction. And plus they lose time. They lose I mean they could potentially lose crew, they could potentially lose an actor. A lot can
Mhm.
happen in 2 weeks.
And a
So,
lot has happened with even with lead actors. I've seen it,
yeah.
where a lead actor will drop out. Robert Pattinson almost lost his role in the Batman here recently. Like, I know that they just pretty much finished it up, but nearing the end, it was all of the starting and stopping was taking a toll on him because he said just you have to keep your shape as an actor,
Right.
because you're not. What was that role? The pianist or the machinist with Christian Bale,
Mhm.
where he
Yeah.
like twig thin. If that movie would have been filming right now and production stops, essentially that's messing with that individual portraying that character because it's affecting his lifestyle. He still has
Right.
to maintain that physique that he's keeping in the film.
Right. I mean, some people are going to look at that and say, well, that's the choice that he made. But at
Is
the
it
same time, it's a job just like any other.
right?
I
It's still,
mean, if you take a factory job, you chose to work there. You may not love working there.
yeah,
I've been there. I've worked in a factory job and fucking hated every second of it. But I
absolutely.
chose to work there. But I also chose not to stay there when the time came. So
Yeah,
there is a level of choosing.
absolutely.
You have some choice in there. But I think people think that making movies is all fun and games, and it's not. It's
No.
especially at Tom Cruise's level, it is a business.
Oh, 100%.
And and just like every other business, they have overhead, and they have insurance that they have to pay, and they have overtime that they have to pay. There's a lot of strict rules and things when it comes to shooting a film.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing if you're on an independent film like with us. I mean, we can go 12 hours and not get penalized.
Yeah.
I've shot 18 hours before. I've done it more than once just to get something done on a film. And of course, we never got penalized. We aren't part of the system. You go an 18-day and you're part of the system, you can fuck yourself
Yeah.
big time. That's a lot of extra money that adds up very fast.
And that comes
Because you
out of
don't
your ass.
Right, right, because you don't just have the actors in front of the camera, but you have everyone behind the camera, and then you have everybody
Mhm.
who's in craft services. You have everybody who's all the way down to the dude that's sitting in a golf cart waiting to take people to their car at the end of the day. I
Yeah.
mean, all of that starts to add up. So, um, yeah, so I completely understand the stressors that producers are under and wanting to scream on set,
Yeah.
you know?
You were there at a time or two recently.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we had some things happen on the
Oh,
set
yeah.
that I was directing, but I feel like I didn't. It wasn't. But that was the other thing too. Like that wasn't specifically anybody's fault.
Yeah, it was just
That was on
circumstantial.
set, so I was in no place. I wanted to scream.
Yeah, there was an internal scream for sure.
Yeah. Actually, I think there was an outward scream because I walked towards the back room at one point. And Eric was back there, and I was like, "We just got fucked.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
We just got royally fucked."
Yep.
So I said it kind of loud, but I didn't know. It was just me and Eric in the room. I didn't know how
And I
many people
remember
might
I
have actually heard
remember
it.
Eric coming out from there and I was like, "Is everything okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, we just got railed." And I'm like, "We got what?" He goes, "We got railed." And I was like, "Railed? Oh my God." I was like, "Well, okay, I'll let you have your moment." And that was when he went to go do some rewrites. And I was like, "Well, fuck me, like I'm so sorry that happened." So I waited a while and then, you were kind of mellowed out at that point. And that's when you told me what had happened. And I was like, "Oh man, I'm just gonna stay over here." I'm staying in my
Now, are
lane.
you talking about on his set?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Now if I was initially talking about what was going on my set, yeah, he had something arise on his where
Yeah.
but here's what's funny though. In both of those instances, in the moment with what we were doing, that additional day that we ended up having to pick up and where we got an additional 8 to 10 hours of filming, ended up being like a godsend. It ended up being something that helped rather than hurt. And the same thing with Eric's situation, because he was supposed to have 2 cops and it went down to 1, and he thought it was the end of the world.
Yeah.
But ultimately, after it was all said and done and we watched the segment, he came to me, he was like, now that I watch it, I'm really glad we only had the 1 cop, because while in real life they typically have more than 1 officer together
on that kind of call.
In this situation, aesthetically and for time purposes and everything, it actually worked out better to only have 1
and
police officer.
I think that in not even in an independent film setting, but I think going forward, that middle ground to like Hollywood status, anybody would have made that call, and anybody would have been perfectly fine with that call, because when you look at it on film and you see James come through that door, it just feels more less intrusive, as far as like if you had 2 people and now you've got the 1 officer who's roided out. And I'm not saying, James, don't kill me, I know you're not on roids, but like you're looking at this monster of a man coming through with a gun, and you're like, okay, well, whoever's in this house is about to get ganked. And then you just see no one else behind him, and it's like, okay, because a lot of the times you got like 2 or 3 cops coming in, and then the camera's panning this way or panning that way, and you're trying to figure out which cop is going to take the lead and who's going to take the brunt of it and get knocked out. But James handled that very, very well, to be on the spot like that. And like I said, it paid off in the end. Like when you see the film, it doesn't look overdone, because the camera's focused on 1 cop, and it's not having to cut away, and the focus is right there in the moment. I like that. I think it works.
Well, I think the other thing too is that there's the initial, you really don't have any other choice. That was the only option that he had. So he had to move forward with that option, same as the situation I was placed in. But I think ultimately too, it's kind of how you handle things in the face of that. I hate using the word adversity, because there's far more adverse things in life that happen. I think ultimately though, to me, that's those hurdles that have to be overcome, to me, show how creative you truly are.
Definitely.
Because it's one thing to sit down and write something. It's a whole other thing to make it come to life. And you're going to be faced with compromise, and it's how you react to that compromise, and then what triggers you pull, that shows kind of how creative. Because if you freeze up and don't do anything, well, how creative are you really?
Yeah.
So it's I think those are the moments that even show the person who's in charge how creative they can be.
And that's another,
because that's really that's what we're doing, is like we're being creative every single second.
And
I mean, there's help, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
I mean, on some sets people are probably alone, but on our sets people aren't alone. So you do have people chiming in and giving their 2 cents. But yeah, it's to me it shows how creative you are as an individual.
Yeah,
when you get faced with that deer in the headlights situation.
Definitely. And I think overall that the Eric scene specifically, I think his scene came across awesome. Everyone has their things that they would have done differently looking back, but that's the hindsight part. But given the obstacles that you guys had to face with certain situations, the payoffs were great. And Um, you know, Eric, I tell him all the time, every time I see him at work, I'm like, man, you just ease up off yourself just a little bit more, and you would be blown away at how relieved you feel. And I'm preaching to the choir because I do it to myself. You know, whenever I'm working on a photo and I can't get like certain balances of color right, it's like Alex just said he might not make it. So, well, Alex, I hope you're watching this, and I hope you know that that really hurt our feelings. Not really.
What a super loser.
Yeah, we don't care. You're a douche. But
you
no,
know, truthfully, I don't know Alex. I'm sure he's a great guy.
yeah, Alex can.
I've
be
seen
a
his,
great
I've seen his
guy.
name around, but I've never talked to him.
Yeah,
So
he can be a great. No, I'm kidding. He's a good friend. But no, the things that pay off the most are the ones, the obstacles that you overcome, and that's why I like watching the behind the scenes stuff a lot on horror movies, is because it feels, well, I guess action as well, but you really never see behind the scenes stuff of like comedy or like romance films where it's like they're having to overcome obstacles on set. But it's always with like uh horror movies, or like what are the disaster pieces like 2012, where like, oh, you know, something broke and they had to improvise. I don't know, I just like
right.
that because they still made the film and it was still enjoyable, and you know, it could be a film that might be a cult classic. um but
Well, a lot of, especially a lot of films today, because um, a lot of movies, and not just the ones today. Scream, going back to Scream, or the Saw franchise. People toil away writing these scripts and spend all this time on pre-production and production, and then they shoot the film, and the film comes out, and they had spent all this time making it, and it explodes onto the scene, right? And then you watch the special features for all the follow-ups and the sequels,
yeah,
and it's like the whole time they were making the movie, they had 3 weeks to write it, because 2 weeks after that they would start shooting. And then through the entire movie they're constantly rewriting and scrapping ideas and redoing the ending. And you know, so it's
why director's cuts are really cool.
yeah. Well, I just watched, it's funny, I watched the movie Apollo 18 last night, which is not the first time I'd seen it. It's that found footage movie.
You know, I still
And
haven't seen it yet.
it's pretty good. It's really, there's a couple things that bother me.
Mhm.
They it looks very authentic when you look at all the lunar footage and the footage of them in outer space. It looks pretty authentic the way it's shot and the way it's filmed. What bugs me about the movie, though, is about 30 minutes into it they kind of throw out the whole zero gravity thing. So while they're in the LEM, after they land on the moon, it's like normal gravity inside the space station, or inside the spaceship.
But not on the moon.
No, when they go
Okay.
outside, then it's all zero gravity again. But when they go inside, nothing's like floating. Everybody moves like they do on Earth. At one point something falls, and when it does, it's like up on a shelf. It just falls right to the floor and clangs against something.
Didn't think that one all the way through, did they?
Yeah, well, I mean, and I know that's tough, because I mean, unless you're using computer effects, you have to actually achieve zero gravity like they did in Apollo 13.
Mm-hmm.
And that's extremely dangerous how they were doing it, and expensive.
I was going to say that's
So,
very expensive.
Yes, you know, because they have to hire that plane, and then it has to keep flying up and then dropping at that 45-degree angle. And then you only get like 20 to 30 seconds of zero gravity to film stuff, and then it's got to go back up and then drop down again. So, but anyway, so if you like found footage movies, definitely check it out. I enjoy it. I wasn't in love with it when I first saw it, but it grew on me.
That's kind of how I felt about what's that movie Kristen Stewart was in it, Underwater.
I loved Underwater.
Oh wow.
When I first saw it, I loved it.
From the beginning of that movie, I was like, I think this is going to be really good. It's going to blow me away. And every single scene, I was like, subtly thinking I'm going to get disappointed at some point. And then I got like 9 scenes in, 14 scenes in. I'm like, I'm still enjoying this movie. What's happening?
Yeah.
But you know, And that's the thing with typecasting. She really, people don't understand. When you're a young actor or actress, you take roles that are available, no matter how cheesy Twilight is.
Yeah. Well, her acting's not very good in that, though.
It doesn't really need to be, though.
But in her defense, though, I've seen actors start out not very good and they get better as they go along. I thought she did great in Underwater.
She did, yeah.
I thought she was really good in American Ultra. I don't know if you saw that or not.
That was a good movie, actually. Yeah,
But yeah, I thought she was really good in American Ultra. I haven't seen the new Charlie's Angels. Probably won't. I'm not a big Charlie's Angels fan. I never even really saw the original Charlie's Angels.
Yeah,
I never even seen the TV show. I'm just not a Charlie's Angels fan.
Just missed me with that one.
Yeah. But what I was saying about Apollo 18, the whole reason I even brought that up is something I never realized is there's alternate endings to the movie. So there's the ending that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to the special features last night, there was 4 other endings they had shot for how it, and I won't say what they are because I don't want to spoil it for you, but it was really interesting to see the other different avenues they took to end the film. Now I'm glad they went with the ending that they did. The other ones were still there. One was awful.
Really?
And the other 3, because it was like 4 alternate endings. One
I like when they do that, though. I like when
one was really bad, but the other 3 I thought were all compelling in their own right. But the one they ended up going with was the way the movie ended is probably the strongest one out of the 5.
If you can do found footage and do it well, I think that genre can be awesome.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Blair Witch Project.
The original or the new one?
The original. And, honestly, I did enjoy the new one.
I liked the new one.
I have to say.
I watched it last night.
That one actually really threw me for a loop because
the
whole spoiler alert time travel thing.
Yeah.
I was like, it's time travel without being time travel, if that makes any sense at all. Like it just made it its own thing. I don't think another film has ever done anything like that. And it was very creative. But yeah, the whole found footage thing, there's a niche for it. And I have certain movies that I'll put in a little folder and I'll watch them. But yeah, that movie, Blair Witch Project, the first one, really freaked me out for a long time. It stuck with me. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to bed tonight.
I went and saw it in the theater, and I put a post last night. I didn't fall for the hype for the movie. I wanted to see it because it looked interesting, and plus I'm a horror fan, so
Wait, you
I
are?
really wasn't. I wasn't like, believe it or not.
Huh.
But like one of Trina's sisters, and this is well after 2000, got into an argument with me about how I made a comment. I was talking about Blair Witch, and I made the comment about, how well marketed the movie was.
Very well.
And I don't remember what it was that I said, but she started arguing with me about how, no, it's real. It was a documentary. It really happened. I had to show her Heather Donahue's Subway commercial to prove to her that it wasn't real. Because she had watched like the special on the Sci-Fi Channel, that behind the scenes thing where it showed all the cops and stuff going out in the woods because they were searching for the 3 lost filmmakers, and so she fully got caught up in it and then thought it was real. I never believed at any point that it was like a real thing. I thought it was compelling the way it was done, but I thoroughly enjoyed it when I saw it.
Oh yeah.
From the sound design and just, it was completely different than any other type of horror film you've seen. And it really played off the less is more and the unknown. And a lot of that was done through sound design and just the mystery of what was happening around these 3 individuals while they're out in the
very
woods.
important
And
element
plus
of horror
their
film.
acting is so fucking good in that movie.
Very believable.
So good. And that to me was the real key of making it. That's what made it such a great movie, because then you see enough, then jump to the future well after found footage has been done to death.
Yeah.
And now found footage are a guilty pleasure. I started going through a list of like found footage movies that I really enjoy last night, like the Chernobyl Diaries and As Above, So Below,
Wreck.
and the Pyramid. The Wreck series is really good, and I even like the American Quarantine version.
Yeah, those were good.
I thought it was awesome. Even like The Devil's Due and a lot of these Exorcist based, supernatural type found footage movies, I really enjoy them. But the one movie that really disappointed me was Paranormal Activity, and it was lightning in a bottle.
Oh yeah,
because it was made for like $11,000 or whatever, and then it became $1 million franchise. But what I find interesting is, for that, I did kind of fall for the hype, because I was really hoping for another Blair Witch experience when I went and saw it in the theater. And plus, they did something that you don't see a lot in their market, and they did a great job at their marketing, because they showed audience reactions in the commercials.
Yes, it's brilliant. It's brilliant marketing.
Yeah, and as we know, when a movie studio says the scariest movie since The Exorcist, it's not going to be the scariest movie since The Exorcist. But when you see those people's reactions, I was really like, oh man, I bet this is going to be good. So we went and saw it. Stylistically, technical wise, it was really well done. The way it was filmed, all the special effects and things that were done in it, spot on. The acting in that movie is atrocious. It was so bad. I thought about just getting up. I don't usually get up in movies. I want to get up, but I figure, all right, I'm on this journey. I've paid money. I'm going to finish it to the very, very bitter end. But the acting in that movie is so bad. Especially, I can't even think of her name, but the woman who plays the wife.
Yeah.
Is so stale.
Yeah, her scream lived in my nightmares forever.
Yeah.
Because it's so flat.
Yeah, see, that's what flat is perfect. Both her and her husband were flat like the whole movie. And here's the other thing that really bugged me about the film. There's that scene where, shit has gone south. It is obvious.
Is this after the Ouija board sets on fire?
Oh, everything.
Yeah.
It's that scene where the husband goes into the bedroom and she's basically already possessed.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, honey, I think we should leave. I think there's a cab here. We're going to go stay in a hotel and get out of here. And she's like, no, we have to stay here. I'm not going. I'm staying here. And he was like, well, I'm not going to leave you alone. So I guess I'll stay here too. I'd look at my wife and I'd be like, bye.
Yep.
I will call me if you don't get killed.
Yeah, this is not a discussion.
I would be gone. Yeah,
house is possessed. There's fucking footprints in the baby powder. We're out. We're gone.
Now, I understand it's a movie. And especially with horror films, stupid and or questionable decisions have to be made to further along a plot, because
I know
in all these movies that you see around me right now, this is all stupid decisions. Because let's face it, if people acted the way they should act in real life,
they'd survive.
A scary movie, more often than not, it would only last like 10 minutes maybe.
Oh, Michael Myers is chasing me in a house. I'm going to go down to the basement.
Right.
No, the fuck you're not. You're going to run out of a door.
What's that noise?
I'm going to go check it out.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
upstairs in the attic.
Right. So, I mean, even as kids, we know if there's a scary movie, you're running the other fucking direction.
Oh, yeah.
If you hear a scary noise, you're out. It's over with.
Which is why I love that part in Scary Movie, the spoof. Whenever Carmen Electra's running out in her lingerie, and there's like street signs that says safety and certain death, and she goes to certain death. That was like the perfect slap in the face to horror, And I was here for it, man. I was like, that is awesome. It clearly states certain death or safety. And she could have ran to safety. She chose certain death.
Yeah,
Had
that
her-
was I really liked the
she had
scary
her
movie.
tit stabbed with, the goo. But yeah, you're absolutely right, man. It's
Yeah.
just a wall of stupid decisions, like the insurance commercial where they say, "Should we run to the running car or run and hide behind the chainsaws?"
Let's go behind it. And then at the very end, that girl's like, let's go to the cemetery.
Yeah, and then the killer is right behind him, and he's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
No, I agree.
They're-
It's formulaic to a degree, but like you said, to further the plot. And I know that stupid decisions have to be made to do it, but at some point, is there a way that like a writer can maybe like take that and say, okay, I know that this would further the plot, but let's further the plot in a way that people won't expect. And that's where the creativity gets into it, which is what I like about some of these horror movies like A Quiet Place, that it's something fresh,
Right.
you never in a million years would have thought his kid, spoiler alert,
Yeah.
dies like that, because you're like, oh, they're not gonna do that, it surely not John Krasinski's child.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
And that's the beginning of the movie.
That's
the first 5 minutes.
Exactly. And I was like, still kind of bitter. I was like, it's still the little girl's fault.
That was another great experience in the movie theater.
Oh, it was.
Because the movie depends on silence so heavily. And most movies you go see are very, very dependent on sound design and music.
Mm-hmm.
And A Quiet Place went in the opposite direction. And it was probably one of my favorite movies of 2018. And I went and saw it in the theater with my mom.
I have to agree. I went back and saw it twice, but the cinema is an experience, man. Especially with horror. There's so many sounds that you don't hear unless you have a good sound system at home, which I'm so thankful that we invested in, because you want to hear things. Like when I went and saw the remake of It, there were subtle nuances of things that, you could hear in the theater. And now that I have it streaming, I can't hear it. And I have a good sound system and I can't hear it. But I remember back at the theater, like, whenever Pennywise was in the drain and, the little laughs or the little water drips.
Right.
You really feel that in your chest, and you're like, oh my God, I feel like if I looked over my shoulder right now, Pennywise would be right there. But like that's the missing element right now to film, is the theater experience. But it's those fresh takes. And I've always wondered, I was going to ask, like, what is something that you really look for in like a new horror film? Like whenever you see, let's just for shit's sake say Johnny Depp is going to be in a horror film. Like, what is something that you look for other than like a well-known actor? I'll just say that, like a well-known actor or a semi-well-known actor is in this horror movie. Like, what is something that you look for?
I mean, in some ways I am, I'm like everybody else, where I see a movie and I go, oh, Gerard Butler's in that. I really want to see that. Maybe not everybody likes Gerard Butler, but I enjoy Gerard Butler, right?
I do.
So there's certain movies. Well, and I'll just go with Johnny Depp. Normally, when I see Johnny Depp's going to be in a movie, unless it's The Lone Ranger, then I say I really want to see that. Usually, or Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
I'll watch anything with Tom Hanks in it. So
we literally watched him tie his shoe and button a sweater as Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I cried.
Yeah, who didn't?
Cried like a baby. But it's funny with horror, though. I go in the opposite direction usually with horror.
Mm-hmm.
I've found the most satisfying experiences watching a movie in the horror genre tend to be the movies that are full of complete unknowns, or it's not, the success of the film isn't hinging on an anchor actor for the project.
Absolutely.
like this whole entire upper row that you see right here. This is all. I don't know if you can. Actually, I don't know. I don't think you can see it.
Let's see.
This is all IFC Midnight movies.
Dead Room.
I am a.
Oh
Okay,
no,
yeah,
no,
so
no!
you
I
can't
have
see-
seen that. I've seen Abandoned.
Yeah,
Is that
like
as
so you got Submerged, The Pack, The Dead Room, The Abandoned. Now some I think The Abandoned does have. I mean, sometimes it has
isn't that with Katie
recognizable actors.
Holmes?
What, The Abandoned?
Yes.
No, it does have Jason Patrick in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes they have some recognizable actors, but then there's like Plus One is really good, and I don't think it has any known actors in it, but it's written and directed by the guy who did the remake of Last House on the Left, which I thought the remake of that was fantastic.
Phenomenal.
And I always get shit for this, but I thought it was better than I thought it improved on the original.
1,000,000%.
I'm not a huge fan of the original Last House on the Left, but I love the remake of it. Now, IFC Midnight did release Maniac, the remake of Maniac that had Elijah Wood in it. And I don't know if you've seen it.
I
but
have
it is
not.
Really, really, really fucking good.
And here's the thing about that. I really enjoy Elijah Wood.
Yeah, I haven't seen that Come to Daddy movie that came out not too long ago. But anyway, so like a lot of movies I gravitate towards are like these, like the IFC Midnight movies, most like those types of films, or movies that Dark Sky puts out, or even just independent horror. It seems like all the really, and I'm taking myself out of that arena talking about it, but it seems like all the really, really great, creative, fresh, and fun movies that are coming out are done by complete unknowns, like people that you've never heard of in your entire life.
Like the new directors of Scream 5.
Well, they did Ready or Not.
But before that...
Well, before Ready or... Yeah, I don't know what they did before Ready or Not.
No.
Ready or Not was incredibly well done.
That's a national fucking treasure.
Yeah. I put that right up there with just as much fun as I had watching Cabin in the Woods.
I'm so glad that you said you enjoyed that movie, because you know how
I love Cabin in the Woods.
So many people shit on that film, and I'm so tired of it because it was really good. It was obviously going to be predictable, but in a sense, it wasn't predictable. Like, who would have imagined the laser grid blocking them from leaving? You know, that Chris that he slams into with a motorcycle. You know, that the government is controlling all of this to sacrifice humans for some gods. Like, that was just, I want a sequel to that so bad that I've actually considered emailing Joss Whedon.
Well, I mean, plus it's Drew Goddard. Drew Goddard's really good.
And it's like, what are you doing with yourself?
What I found really interesting, though, was they made that movie and then it sat on a shelf for a really long time. So long that Thor came out first.
Mm-hmm.
And then they released Cabin in the Woods.
And it was smart.
Right, exactly. So Chris Hemsworth had already done Thor. Well, he had done that first, but Thor had hit theaters, and they were able to ride some of that success of Thor. Now, I don't know if that was they planned it that way on purpose or just worked out that way. But yeah, that ended up really helping.
I'm telling them that was on purpose, 100%.
Probably. But I don't think Chris Hemsworth had really done anything before Cabin in the Woods.
No,
I think that was
really.
one of his. That was at least his first American movie.
Mm-hmm.
If I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it's.
I loved the. What was the guy that was one of the government workers? Not the dad from Step Brothers, but the other one that was in Billy Madison.
Oh yeah.
He's in a series. It's really good.
Bradley Whitford.
He is so good.
Yeah. See, all I had to do is just pull it right.
And see, I love the cover art for that too.
I do too.
The house that changes.
Yeah. It's like a Rubik's Cube, but it's a cabin.
It was just such a fucking clever movie. And honestly, they could go anywhere with that sequel. They could honestly go prequel and tell people why they decided, who the gods are, you know, set the whole reason up for why, and then do Cabin in the Woods 2 and then show the aftermath. you know.
Right.
Like that's what I loved about that movie is, yeah, there was some predictability about it, but you know, whenever it comes to horror, there typically is a little bit of predictability, which kind of makes it fun because you want to like get some things right when you're watching it. It's like, oh man, I was wrong. But then sometimes you're like, oh man, I was wrong. Like, damn, I didn't see that coming. You know, that's the great thing about horror is you get all of that with that genre. Like, you know, oh, I got to guess who the killer was, or I never saw that coming. Like, that's who the killer was, you know, like there are so many layers of the genre. Like with did you see Mother with Jennifer Lawrence?
No,
Really?
I don't get into a lot of those what I call artsy fartsy horror films.
Okay, so
My
I don't either, but this one I was bored to tears one weekend, and I really thought Jennifer Lawrence at that time was on a roll because Silver Linings Playbook had just climbed the ladder as one of my favorite movies of all time.
right.
Just because how they depicted mental health was very accurate in that film, and I thought she did great. So I was like, okay, so Mother comes out, and you know, then they have what's his name, Javier Bardem playing
Yeah, I
spouse,
believe you're right.
um, who already just looks formidable. And you know, you're right though, PJ, because it was kind of an artsy film, but the longer the movie went on, you start to see like it's kind of like hoity-toityness of filmmaking almost like fade away, and they're just like peeling layers back of this movie, and like by the time you get to the middle of the onion of this film, you're like, holy shit, fucking things are going down, and I don't know if I'm ready for it because I don't know where it's going. Like for once
Right.
in my life, I'm watching a movie, I have no idea where this is about to go, and then it goes to that spot that sets up the finale of the film. And I won't spoil it for you because I really think you should give this movie a chance. But it really surprised me, and the way that this film ends will leave you like kind of irritable, but in a way that you're like, did that seriously just happen?
Right. I mean, I'll probably give it a chance eventually.
I think it's on
Um,
Hulu right now, actually.
Usually I reserve my artsy fartsiness for comedies like Paul Thomas Anderson and
Yeah.
Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
Um, those types of films. Now, that's not to say I don't like some overly artistic horror films, because there are some slow burns that I really enjoy, like the Black Coat's Daughter. I really liked.
Mhm.
The Witch. I liked The Witch.
I started that the other day and I probably
It
gotten
is
13 minutes into
very,
it.
very, very slow. Like very slow, but
And
it's
I think I
really
stopped
good.
watching it just because I was talking to somebody about it, and they said it's not really about what you think.
It's not. It's not. But that's what I enjoyed about it.
And
But
so
then, like, I watched Hereditary, and
that
it
mo-
did nothing. It did nothing for me.
really,
Yeah,
see, it fucked
and I
me
was
up.
I was pissed off at the ending. I thought the ending was fucking stupid.
So you're not a fan of cult endings?
Um, I am an. I mean, I don't know. It depends. It.
If done well, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I'm okay with ambiguous endings when it's not fucking stupid like
Mhm.
Hereditary's was.
I
He
think
he
that
f- he like what floats up into that cabin or whatever, or
the little treehouse, yeah.
the tree house, and then that was it. That was stupid.
Like
And I mean,
if they would have ended it before that, I would have been totally on board with it.
yeah,
Like
I
like
think I was. Well, I take that back. I won't. I'll say this. I won't. I won't say it did nothing for me, because I was fully invested in the movie and what was happening
mm,
up until like the last 15 minutes,
yeah.
when all of a sudden all that weird shit starts happening, and then the movie ends with him floating up into the treehouse. To me, the movie went completely off the rails, and I'm sure somebody who really gets into these films can sit down and go, well, this movie, so this part of the movie represented this, and this represents this, and this represents that. And I'm sure I missed some things and everything. But like the dynamic between the characters and the broken down family unit and the mental health issues passed from, you know, from one family member to the other, like I picked up on all that. And I thought a lot of those dynamics was well done. I thought the mystery and everything was well done in the film. So I won't say the movie is like a total piece of shit or anything, but the way it ended, I felt like I was robbed of my time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can understand.
Like I was so much so that I have no desire to watch Midsommar or whatever you pronounce.
Don't do it.
I don't have any desire.
Literally, if you want to watch, like the only reason people want to watch that movie is for the death scenes because they've heard how horrific they are. Just get on YouTube, type in the movie title, and type in death scenes. There's a whole like, you know, spliced together thing. It's like 8 minutes long.
What are they all like? Just super graphic? Are they creative or are they just super graphic?
No, they are creative. Kind of like how Nicolas Cage's death was in The Wicker Man.
Right.
You know?
What a terrible movie.
It's my favorite death of any movie.
Bitches!
The bees, not the bees!
Bees, not the bees!
I want that.
Oh my God.
I want that as a ringtone. When
he drop kicks that girl, I died. I'll watch anything with Nicolas Cage in it.
Oh yeah.
There's some movies he's great in, and then there's some movies he's in that are just terrible. The Wicker Man remake is definitely one of those terrible movies.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I do have to ask this before we close because you brought it up earlier.
Oh no.
I'm rehashing it now.
Is it going to get me canceled?
No.
Okay.
We don't. we here at Jabber do not believe in cancel culture.
Okay, good. Is it going to reveal my white supremacy?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm kidding.
So you mentioned something about the movie Left Behind.
Right.
So I'd love to hear this story just because, you know, for shits and gigs.
Right. Okay. So to preface this story, I myself am not a religious individual.
Mm-hmm.
Faith is something I think that's what I struggle with because I have one foot firmly planted in the world of science.
Yeah.
But I've also had some very bizarre and weird, like supernatural experiences, ghosts mainly.
Yes.
That have happened, or that I've seen, things I've experienced that I cannot explain.
For sure.
Now, I can't 100% say that it wasn't my brain like flipping a switch suddenly and I was suffering from like momentary schizophrenia or something like that.
Yeah.
But I would say for the most part, I feel like I have all my ducks in a row.
Yeah, for sure.
Whatever that phrase is that for the most part, I seem to be mentally stable. I have my issues, but so the one thing I don't do though is I don't say that there's not a God or that what someone believes in is not true, because it's very true to them, and and just like the experiences I've had where I believe I've seen ghosts, or even one time I'm pretty positive, or actually twice, I'm pretty positive I saw a UFO. These people believe their religious beliefs and their foundations to be something that's true to them. Now, my own personal thoughts on them, I might differ from how they look at it, but I'm not going to sit there and say you're wrong and it's not real, because at the end of the day, I can't disprove religion. But I struggle with faith because I also can't prove it either. So that's where my own personal struggle comes in. So anyway, what I was telling to you though was I was taking in college, I was taking a sociology class, And one of the things that you learn, one of the things that you study in sociology is you study different religions around the world, and not so much why people believe it, but more like the structure of belief. Like, like, so
Okay.
anyway, one of the things that the professor would do is at the end of what we were studying, he would find, and I found this to be really interesting, but he would find, like one part of the sociology class, we talked about, like the law, the law, the legal system, and how people react to the legal system and all that. And then he showed like the movie Double Indemnity, right? So anyway, so after we got done talking about the religion stuff, he showed the movie Left Behind.
Now, which Left Behind did he show?
The one with
If you're having to guess, it's Kirk Cameron.
Kirk Cameron. Yes. Yeah. The one with
that
good old Kirk.
good old Sievers, Mike Sievers.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, it was that. Now I will say this, from an entertainment standpoint, I found the movie to be very interesting.
Yes.
Okay. And I do know that, like, I mean, obviously it has to do with the rapture and revelations and all that stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
and the Antichrist coming to power and all that. And I mean, not only is it about that stuff, but it's very like overly produced Hollywood rapture and Antichrist. So anyway, when the movie ended, we began a discussion on the movie. And everybody got, not everybody, but a majority of the class seemed to get real serious about discussing this film. And I got really, really confused. And I kind of raised my hand and I was just like, all right, I got to ask, like, you all believe that's what's going to happen? Like, that's what you honestly think is going to happen? Well, they took that as me like attacking them.
Of course they did.
And suddenly it became this witch hunt. And rather than try to explain myself, I doubled down and I started.
You did.
Yeah, I started psychoanalyzing the movie and the ridiculousness of the events. And then was putting everybody on the spot to try to explain scientifically and logistically how those things how they would happen. Like one day you're sitting there and suddenly people just vanish. Well, how do they vanish?
Yeah.
Do they turn to dust? I mean, do they literally just fade away? Is it really a pile of clothes? And then it was like the one thing that I thought was really, now this is, when I say this is not me saying this about what people believe. It's how they portrayed it in the movie. Mm-hmm. There's this part that I found to be really dumb in the movie with how the Antichrist comes to power. He's sitting there and he's like this normal guy, right? Mm-hmm. And they're in this like executive conference room, and they're all talking, and like the world's going to shit, right? And it's just, he's this normal guy through like the whole movie, and then all of a sudden he like stands up, and they had this like yellowish warm light on him, right? It like fades away, and it becomes this blue light. There's like this blue light on his face, and then all of a sudden, like that, he's super evil. And he has these magical powers, and he's like Darth Vader and starts like strangling somebody.
I'm going to have Alex like insert some images of this.
With his mind, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, I couldn't understand how someone, and I mean, they were doing the same thing. They were doubling down like, yes, that's how it's going to happen. And I know just enough about the Bible to be dangerous. And I'm like, find me where it says that in Revelation.
But they'll cherry pick around it. Like they'll find what suits
I mean, that
them.
that does happen. And see, that's the other thing. Like, I've had conversations with people where, they have, like you said, they'll say, well, my belief is based on this, and they'll cherry pick that one scripture.
It's like, well, if
And I'm
that's
like, well,
what
it's
you
interesting.
believe,
Yeah, I'm
then
like,
you
well,
could
it's
also have your
interesting that
kids stoned to death for disobeying their parents.
right. And there's parts in the Bible about uh, the obedience of women and how they're basically slaves, and I mean, but a lot of that's Old
The
Testament
S
stuff.
word.
It's still in there.
Oh,
But
no, yeah.
but anyway, so like I said, so that's basically what happened was, instead of backing down, it became this witch hunt. Now it ended up the professor like jumped in, and then we all and then everybody
Like
everybody cooled down.
everybody kind of take it easy on PJ. Come
Yeah.
on now.
We found we all ended up finding that unity that Republicans are so looking for today,
Yes.
But yeah, that's basically what happens. I'd never seen Left Behind before.
That was a fresh experience for you.
But I will say, after watching Left Behind, it made me really interested to see when that movie The Omega Code came out with Casper Van Dien, where it's an end of the world like Revelations movie, but it's made by a completely different company. So they ended up making a sequel, and both the movies, the second one is called Megiddo, and which I guess is Armageddon in Latin, I believe. But anyway, I'm pretty sure it has Casper Van Dien in it too. And now I didn't go see either of these movies at the theater. I rented them when they came out, but they are ridiculous.
You still have your tickets.
They're disaster. They're basically disaster movies surrounded by Christian beliefs.
You still have your ticket stub, be honest.
Whatever. The only Casper Van Dien movie I've seen in the theater is Starship Troopers.
Yeah, it is.
I'll have you know. But anyway, so I didn't condemn any of those people. For believing that was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, but part of me is just like,
you should really watch the Nicolas Cage version.
I did.
You did?
Because it has Nicolas Cage in it.
Yeah, so what did you think?
It's the first movie I've seen of his where I felt like he phoned in his performance. Because he's just sitting in the pilot seat like the whole movie. They literally built an airplane set, and then we're just like, hey, we can just shoot this movie and shoot with Nicolas Cage all day, and all we got to do is just keep going. I mean, it was smart filmmaking because he's in like the entire film.
Yeah.
But he's just in the cockpit the whole time. I thought it was just as ridiculous as the Kirk Cameron version. I don't,
So Nick Cage isn't a crazy person.
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah. But don't worry, he fully makes up for it with a history of swear words on Netflix.
I have to see this.
It is fantastic. And he is I saw people like shitting on him, saying how terrible of a host. Yeah, saying he's a terrible host. He's great in it. He's awesome.
Nicolas Cage
as the host,
literally a national treasure.
Yep, he really is. Goofy bastard.
Yeah. Well, PJ, man,
intended, I'm sure.
None at all. I'll close in saying that I look forward to whenever we can, grab coffee or whatever, and not have to make out virtually. But I know it goes without saying, but this year should be fun. Whatever project you and I seem to get into, and
got a couple irons in the fire. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. I told my wife, there's no concerts. Well, there are, but none that I'm gonna go to. Just because I just don't feel like dealing with all that shit right now.
I think Nickelback's coming. They're going to be coming back to the scene, so that should be fun.
You can tease me about Nickelback all you want. I'm still going to say I like that band.
I like Nickelback. I'm not.
I love the hate for that band so much.
I don't understand where the hate came from.
I do.
I think it just became popular to hate them.
That's where
There've
it
been
is.
some great jokes made at their expense.
Oh yeah, and
There's
have you
been
seen
some
the commercial
fantastic
that they
memes.
made?
No.
Oh, I'll send you the link. It's great.
Okay.
Actually, I'll have once this is edited by my good friend Alex, I will make sure he inserts somewhere the link to this commercial, or I'll have him put it like in a little part of a corner. But
Right.
Nickelback
Like a
basically,
lower third.
yeah, they basically make fun of themselves because they
That's funny.
realize, that we're Nickelback and we can do what we want, and if you want
Yeah.
to make fun of us, we'll do it too. So fuck you.
I mean, they got huge. They were everywhere. I don't
And
understand
they
how
had
people hated them so much.
They had 2 albums before they were actually popular. The Curb and the State, and those records were phenomenal. They were straight
Really?
up grunge rock, like
Yeah.
90s grunge. When 90s grunge was popular, but they were independent records and they were really, really good before the How You Remind Me record came out.
Right.
And I found them at Walmart one day. They were like $8. I was like, oh my God, Nickelback's real popular. How are these 2 CDs? Maybe these aren't even really Nickelback. Maybe like something happened. I bought them anyway because they were cheap. And I was sure enough, yeah, they were Nickelback albums, and I was pleasantly surprised. And now they're included in their catalog. So when they play live, they'll go back and pull songs from the first 2 records that were independent, and fans know them now. So it's like, you can trash the band all you want. You can make all the jokes you want. Yes, there is an album or 2 that I think is complete garbage, just because it feels like they kind of like sold out. Like the whole Rockstar song just makes me cringe.
Yeah.
In every sense of the way.
I mean, you can't be on top forever.
Right.
But I always enjoyed their songs. I always found them catchy. And now I've been told I have very questionable taste in music.
Well, you have
but my
friends.
loves run. I mean, Nickelback is no Chumbawamba, but who is?
Right. You also have questionable taste in friends.
I didn't even know we were friends.
On that note, pause for awkward.
I'm joking.
No, yeah, man. And before we go, just a quick shout out to our friend Alex, who's dealing with some COVID issues. I know he's kind of dealing with things right now, and Alex has been kind of on my mind lately, so I want to dedicate this episode to Alex Clark.
Not just sexually, but
yeah. Emotionally dealing with things, not just sexually, but yeah. No, COVID-19 sucks, man, and I'm ready for all of it to be over so we can all hang out and blow shit up.
We'll get there.
But yeah, we'll get there. Again, PJ, thanks so much for coming on and hanging out.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
It was great to see you again. It feels like it's been forever. I can't even remember the last time I saw you. It's probably the last day of the reshoot.
Probably. Yeah.
But I hope you have
unfortunately, out of the 2 co-owners of Blood Moon Pictures, you got to see the one that you enjoy the least all the time.
This is true. No, yeah, I see you way too much. Oh, you're talking about Eric.
What?
Whoa.
I don't work with you.
You do.
I do now.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick up a second job at the hospital.
I'll tell Eric just to watch his back.
Yeah.
No,
I couldn't get out of this without making a few digs at Eric. He would be really disappointed.
It wouldn't be you if you didn't.
That's true.
But see, now I have, this episode will premiere sometime this weekend, and I'm sure Eric's probably not going to watch it because Eric rarely texts back because Eric is a bitch.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He always texts me back.
Interesting. Because he always tells
we've slept in a bed together, so he and I have a history.
Oh, that makes perfect
emotionally
sense. Oh, yeah.
Not
emotion. You've slept in an emotional bed together?
Yes.
Okay.
An emotional bed of lies.
Jesus Christ. Hey, man, thanks for coming on, brother. And
no problem.
I can't wait to work with you again this year. And anybody, shameless plug, check out 13 Slays Till Christmas. It will be released in February on video on demand. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, no, not video on demand. So
Blu-ray.
It'll be Blu-ray. It'll start off Blu-ray through ScreamTeamReleasing.com. The shipments should start coming in around February 10th, February 15th. and that's the February 15th is the official release day. And then VOD will follow after that. How well I can't say why. It might take a little bit longer than normal, but
if anyone wants to borrow my copy, I mean, it's whatever.
Yeah,
it's just.
I would hate for people to support our bad habits.
But yeah, so. check out 13 Slays Till Christmas. It was a hot mess. Getting to the end of it, just because that's film. But you know what? It paid off. The premiere was great. It was really cool to see things, finished as something I was there for, and that's something I've never got to experience. So it was just a total blast. Love meeting the cast and some of the crew that I'd never met before that live here locally. Some really great people went in and pitched in an effort to make this film. So it was really good.
I agree.
PJ, thanks for coming on, man. I'm gonna put the bullet down right here and
all right.
Stop recording. Alex, stop recording this, Alex. You know what? He's probably gonna put that in there too, because Alex is an asshole.